Hello, this is Benjamin Boyce, and welcome to Quarantine Conversations. Today's guest is David Silverman, who was a very, very, very active atheist during the atheist movement period, which is still ongoing, but in a different phase than it was before. We talk about the phases of atheism, we talk about quarantine, and we talk about David's concern that our society has lost track of mercy, forgiveness, and redemption, and we talk about his struggles to implement mercy, forgiveness, and redemption in his own life. Now, I've slightly edited this conversation to take out personal signifiers from David's Me Too experience. If you are interested or curious in David's story and all of the details of that, resources are amply found on the internet. Without further ado, here's David Silverman. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hey.
How you doing today, Benjamin?
Good. How are you doing, David?
Very well, very well.
What's on your menu today?
Well, I'm going to sit in my apartment, and I'm going to maybe clean my apartment. I'm going to cook in my apartment, and then I'll watch TV in my apartment, smoke some weed in my apartment, drink some wine in my apartment, play some video games in my apartment, and go to sleep in my apartment.
It's like you're almost married to this apartment thing.
Well, yeah, because we're shut down. We can't leave.
Are you in BC? Are you on the west side of the Canada?
No, I'm in Seattle.
Oh, wait. Why did I think you were Canadian? People accuse me of being Canadian too.
No, I'm in Seattle. I'm in ground zero for this disease.
Yeah.
And we're in stay-at-home situations. We're allowed to go out to exercise once a day.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to tell all of our friends not to come over. And
are they obeying you or are they just showing up anyways?
No. Well, I've got one visitor. My girlfriend is here. She insisted. But yeah, I've got 2 COVID cases in my building.
Oh, geez.
And yeah, so it's coming.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
when did you guys start your lockdown? Was it before? I'm in Olympia. I'm just south of you, and schools closed about a week and a half ago now. So
yeah, we're about the same place. We're about the same place. Yeah.
How have you been adapting to that?
Well, I'm okay. I'm just worried about, I'm not adapting yet, right? It's only been a week, right? Let's see how it is after a month.
Yeah.
Then we'll see how I'm adapting.
That's true.
I don't know how I'm adapting. Right now I'm coping. I don't know if I'm adapting, but it's just interesting to watch the city stop. And it's interesting to watch the people change, because Seattle has its own culture. We're a friendly town. We're a happy town. We talk to each other, and now we're all being really, really friendly and really, really distant. Like yesterday, I ordered a pizza, and the pizza guy came. He wouldn't come up to the apartment. He had to meet me downstairs. He brought the pizza. He put the pizza down on the table, stepped away from the pizza. I took the tip. I put the tip on the table. I used the hand sanitizer after I touched the tip. Then I picked up the pizza, and I said thank you, and I walked away. Wow. And that's our interaction. He put down the pizza, and he stepped away. And we're just keeping so much distance from each other. And I'm a social person, so I'm adapting. It's just going to be interesting the way the city recovers. I'm going to be curious about what happens next, how we do after this. Well, what happens after this, and how long this lasts. Mm-hmm. I'm worried about Trump's declaration that we need to get everything back to normal by Easter.
Yeah.
I don't like that at all. I think that's a clear violation of separation of church and state that's going to hurt a lot of people.
Okay. All right. He's a showman, and he comes up with an idea that he thinks will ring, and then we'll see if that actually is something that's going to be followed through on or not.
I really hope he doesn't. I really hope he doesn't do that, because that's going to mean a lot of people die. And it's all going to be in the name of religion.
How do you face uncertainty of this magnitude? How do you think, what are the things that you worry about most? Is it other people's reaction and then mitigating your relationship to that uncertainty and everybody's collective uncertainty rising to a fever pitch?
Well, I'm afraid, because I've been in a frenzy before, right? I was taken down in a feeding frenzy. I was taken down in a mob. And the mob is not friendly. The mob does not care. The mob does not care about anything. The mob wants you down. And so I'm a little gun shy when it comes to mobs, And when we're talking about this virus, we're talking about a huge potential for mobs everywhere to be looking for people who have the virus, looking for people who are coughing, looking for people to blame. And looking for people to demonize, and I'm afraid of that, because I am seeing a lot of people demonizing other people, whether it's Chinese Americans or Trump or anybody. They're demonizing, and that scares the hell out of me, because demonizing mobs can't be reasoned with. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They can't be calmed. They can't be quieted. They just have to burn themselves out.
Yeah. Do you think that there's a social safety net in that sense that guards society against becoming frothy in that manner at the mouth?
No, I don't. I don't think there's a social safety net. I think that the society will become frothy at the mouth. And I think that the safety net would be activist centrists. Okay. And centrists are, by definition, not extremists. They're not the ones who are going to get all fired up. I can get fired up about centrism. I can get fired up about, freedom of speech, separation of church and state, Enlightenment values, the environment. I can get fired up about that. But what I'm worried about is that there is no safety net, Brian. And what I'm worried about is that we're a society that's just so enamored with fighting and with polarization. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there is a safety gap to stop society from frothing at the mouth. Maybe the National Guard. What are we going to do? So this is a pretty scary time, because we are looking at a combination, a really scary combination, frankly, of polarization and ignorance and a disease, and this hyper frothing at the mouth mob mentality. As I think of it, it seems more and more scary.
Do you think that there's underlying values that can be, boosted up or called attention to in this calm before the storm while we are all kind of quarantined and going inward? Do you think that there's things that we can be meditating and adulating, magnifying with our attention to prepare us for further stress? Yeah,
there's a lot that we can do. I think the secret is humanism. And when I speak about humanism, I've been working on humanism and thinking about humanism for the past, couple of years now. And when I say humanism, I'm going to actually qualify that a little bit, because I'm not talking about secular humanism. I'm talking about the big humanism. I'm talking about humanism of seeing the good, finding the good, identifying the good, and working toward it, and being religious or not. I think that one of the things that we as a society have lost, if we're talking about that frothing at the mouth thing, if we're looking at that mob mentality, we have to look at the reason behind it. We have to look at the reasoning behind it. And if we're talking about stopgap measures, if we're talking about what's going to happen here, I don't know. It's a scary thing, because people need to start talking about mercy, forgiveness, and redemption. Okay, mercy, forgiveness, and redemption are gone from this new religion that is wokeism. And this identity politics meme that has taken over this country. People have lost mercy, forgiveness, and redemption. And yes, I understand that I'm the person who was false Me Too'd and should be talking about mercy, forgiveness, and redemption. I get that. That's beside the point. Religion, by and large, has this mercy, forgiveness, and redemption. Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism even. Of course, atheism doesn't have that. And what has happened over time is that the atheist movement kind of got religion. And I was inside it for a while. The atheist movement, the big players, the big major organizations, they got religion. They got this wokist religion. Mm-hmm. And as atheists, this religion kind of evolved. And it's, okay, we can have the whole discussion. Is it a religion if it doesn't have a God? Let's put that aside. Yeah. It's very, very religion-ish. This identity politics, wokist, social justice stuff. And it's completely void of mercy, forgiveness, and redemption. And that's the problem that we're having. And the reason that it's devoid of mercy, forgiveness, and redemption is that the outrage that comes from this wokeism is all on behalf of somebody else. Mm-hmm. Nobody is outraged about themselves because there's nothing to be outraged about themselves. We actually live in a very free, very low bigoted country. We do not have a systemic racist country. We do not have a systemic bigoted country. We do not have a systemic misogynistic country. But the entire outrage about wokeism is all about other people. All right, it's a huge white knighting type of thing. Everybody's angry on behalf of somebody else. And the problem is that if you're on behalf of somebody else, it's very, very easy to be angry on behalf of somebody else. But you can't be forgiving on behalf of somebody else, right? You can't be. You can't say. You can say, "I'm mad at you, Mr. Guy, I'm mad at you for person X for doing that to person Y," but you can't say, "I forgive you for what you did to person X." Because person X, the person Y, the victim, for lack of a better word, might not be healed yet. And so you're doing something bad to that person, actually betraying that victim if you forgive the perpetrator. And this is why there's no due process. This is why due process is a bad thing. Because you're outraged for somebody else. But you can't say, well, I forgive you for somebody else. You can't say, oh, well, it's okay, you've paid your price for somebody else. Because there's no legal system to say that you've paid your price. So you can never pay your price. There is no specific penalty. And everybody is always going to be afraid to be the first one to forgive somebody who's done something wrong to somebody else, even if that person who's done something, even if that somebody else forgives them. Even if that somebody else is a complete liar. Even if that somebody else didn't have anything to do with it at all. That outrage is there, and then that victim gets abstracted. Mm-hmm. So it no longer matters what they actually think. They're just a victim, and you're just a perp. And so we've got this a very, very long, rambling answer to a very quick question. So we've got this situation where we've got a polarized country that hates each other, and a disease that's adding stress, and massive amounts of stress, fear, and a complete absence of mercy, forgiveness, and redemption from the far left. And on the right, we have this bigotry. There's on the far right, there's racism, there's xenophobia, there's bigotry, and that just feeds the left feeds the right. And we in the center are kind of screwed at this whole thing. So short answer to that very long answer, I'm afraid. And I don't think there's anything that stops the society from moving forward into a frenzy. And if there is a way to do it, I think we all have to worry and think about mercy, forgiveness, and redemption. I think we all have to humanize each other. I think everybody on the left needs to try hard to say something positive about President Trump. Yes. And I think everybody on the right needs to try and say something positive about people on the left. See the positives in each other. We're not demons. Nobody is 100% evil. Nobody is 100% good. And, it's time to start giving each other some slack and to start seeing the humanism in each other. And if we don't actually start seeing the humanity in ourselves, I have a lot of fear, Benjamin. I don't know where this country's going to go. And that's one of the reasons I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing now at the Conru Foundation, and quite frankly, happy to be out of the atheist movement.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, I think out of the atheist movement is the right place for me to be right now. I think I think the atheist movement won. Okay, and I didn't.
Won what?
It won. We were trying to normalize atheism.
Okay.
And atheism is normalized. When I first started in atheism, I'll give you a quick story that I told a few times, but it's a very good, poignant story. When I first started in atheism, we had my first assignment. One of my early assignments was to try and put together an atheist convention in New Jersey in 1997, and we had to try hard to find a hotel that would allow us to come. And we found one. They allowed us to come. They allowed us to pay retail for their space. And their marquee on the front of the hotel, when you walked in, the marquee listed the event as AA. And when you called the hotel to ask if the atheists were there, the hotel staff said no. Fast forward just 20 years, 2018. That was in 1997 was in New Jersey. 2018, Oklahoma City. Okay, big change, New Jersey to Oklahoma City. But also the big change, and I point that out to show you the change here, because the city of Oklahoma City flew me out there and gave me the grand tour. And all the hotels vied for our business. They competed against each other. When we had our event there, we had 850 people. We had Hugh Laurie as a major star. The hotel projected "Welcome American Atheists" onto the wall. And in the airport, in the Oklahoma City airport, the banner, the marquee at the Oklahoma City airport said "Welcome American Atheist National Convention." So that's 20 years, and that's New Jersey to Oklahoma City. So you can see the massive change that we did. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't, no, I'm not going to say it was just me, of course, but it was like this huge movement that really pulled together and did with our stuff, and we won. Mm-hmm. Atheism is normal. When was the last time anyone has been said, "Oh, you're the first atheist I've ever met"? Well, that hasn't happened to me in a decade.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, and the people calling themselves atheists have doubled in the past decade. So, I mean, we are a normal part of society now. Everybody knows atheists. Trump is an atheist. Sanders is an atheist. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's not hard to find us anymore. So we won, but we didn't realize it. At least I didn't realize it, because I was still inside it.
Yeah.
And, what happens is, I'm a firebrand atheist activist, okay? And when you're an activist, you fight. And when you win, it's not really intuitive to say, "Yay, we won." It's not intuitive to say, "Wow, we fucking did it. We did a great job." I'm sorry, I don't know if I can swear on your thing. We did a great job. Look at us. Yay, us. Victory. It's hard to do that. It's much easier to find another fight, to find another problem. Like the analogy is the gay movement won. The gay movement won. Okay, they got what? Full equality plus protection against discrimination. So actually, the gay movement knocked it out of the park. Grand slam home run, right? And instead of saying "Yay, we won," they moved on to trans issues. Well, atheism.
The core activists did. I think a lot of the gay community has moved outside of the LGBT That's what I've been kind of showing, that there's been a migration outside of the LGBT community by people who don't need to be a part of it because they have the tools to go and live the life that they want.
Right. So some people raised the victory flag and patted themselves on the back justly and went home. Yay us. But yeah, you're right. I'm speaking in very general terms here. But the LGBT activism now is on the T side. Mm-hmm. And that's because the LGB side won. Mm-hmm. Okay, you can marry anybody you want. You get full protection, and you can't be bigoted. You can't be discriminated against. Okay, it's very fair to say that the LGBT class is equal to or better than the straight class now, as far as whites is concerned. Mm-hmm. But the
What's the analogy to what would be the radical or the new issue for the atheist movement, which would be analogous to the T? Okay, could you tell me or describe to us how wokeism became I think of the totem, like the intersectional totem became what was danced around by the community?
Yeah, I mean, we were so good for separation of church and state. We were rocking normalization of atheism. I remember when Reason Rally 1 came out, we were conscious of intersectionality. I was conscious. I've always been a person who, made sure that there was an equal number of, or close to an equal number of men and women on the stage, and a good representation of people of color. But by the time Reason Rally 2 came around, it was a religion. By the time 2016 came around, that was the objective. If you look at, I don't mean to shit on anybody at Reason Rally 2. I was an active part of Reason Rally 2, and I'm not shirking my responsibility. But if you look at Reason Rally 1, the idea was it was Woodstock for atheists. Okay, it was the largest atheist event in world history. Blah blah blah.
What year?
If you look at that, was 2012.
Okay.
And in 2016, we had the second Reason Rally. And the second Reason Rally, I didn't run it. And yes, I would have run it differently, but I was still involved and I still made mistakes. But it was about social justice. It was about discrimination against gays. It was about discrimination against trans. It was about, the patriarchy. And that's why it didn't draw a lot of people. It's one of the reasons it didn't draw a lot of people. If we look at the movement, if we look at those two posts as milestones, you can see that somewhere in the middle there, the atheist movement became something very different. Mm-hmm. Somewhere in the middle there, the gays won and moved to trans. Somewhere in the middle there, we won and we moved to the intersectionality religion, just like most of the rest of the atheist movement has. I mean, I look at how AA, American Atheists, Secular Student Coalition, Secular Student Alliance, Center for Inquiry, I'm looking at Foundation Beyond Belief, American Humanist Association. These are all, they're not separation of church and state organizations anymore. They are proponents of the wokeist religion. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to get into the minutia of whether or not wokeism is a religion. It's religion-ish in itself. It's religion-ish enough to call it a religion, and I do.
And by meaning what? It's a social glue. It's a way for people to signal a hierarchy, to say that they're in the club. Is it a tribal thing? Is it a mixture?
It's all tribalism. It's all tribalism. It's tribalism with an imagined demon. It's religion. It's religion with an imagined demon, and unfortunately, no God, unless of course the God is oppression itself.
I mean, or liberation, I guess, but they never stress the They never stress the positive, the liberation.
There is no positive. There is no. That's the point. There is no happiness. There's no good side of the social justice movement. There is no we're pushing for goodness. There is no we're gonna do good to the world. There is only about those people are bad, we're going to drum them out. Those people are bad, we're going to drum them out. Those people are bad, we're going to drum them out. And it's ridiculous because we're drumming them out. They're drumming them out to destroy themselves, and there's no way back. So think about the destruction that they're doing to their movement. Yeah. I mean, I mean, I try to be more humble these days, but let me just step out of my humility statement and make a point, okay? Because I'll just abstract myself, okay? I'm a pretty talented guy when it comes to activism, okay? I'm a pretty accomplished guy. I got some good, numbers behind me. I got some good experience behind me. And I've never assaulted anybody. But I'm out. And I'm out because, and just look at the abstract version of me, okay? This guy, this person, this white guy who has been in the movement for 30 years is no longer an asset to the movement. And he's no longer an asset to the movement because of false allegations against him and the prohibition against actually looking at evidence and the prohibition against even suggesting the possibility that a woman might lie about sexual assault, even if there's ample evidence to show that she did. They did. And so that's happening, and I can't go back. Okay, I tried to go back, and then somebody else invented something else to shove me out. So I can't go back. Yes, it's a loss for me, and yes, it's a loss for my life, and yes, I feel terrible about it, and yes, it's painful. But I just got to say also, just to look at the abstract, I'm an asset that the atheist movement no longer has, and I'm not the only one, and there's no returning us. And so you're taking the people I worked for 25 years. I got some good accomplishments going on there. I was doing the thing. And now you're replacing the people who have done all those assets. You're replacing those assets with people of intersectionality without actually considering whether or not they're as good as or better than the people who left. Yeah. And so the social justice movement, the atheist movement, is in a continuous downgrade, pushing out the people who are there. Everybody's afraid, and because everybody's afraid to speak out. I've had, I'm just going to say, hundreds of people who have contacted me over the past couple of years supporting me but saying they can't speak out because they're afraid. Hundreds. It's
That's
ridiculous.
a consistent theme in academia. Whenever this happens to somebody in academia, this is something that there's a lot of people that are on their side, but
that's terrorism. Okay, that is literally terrorism. That's fear-based. That's rule via fear, and that's what this movement is doing, and that's what the atheist movement has become. And when I say the atheist movement, again, I'm only talking about the big organizations. You got organizations like Atheists for Liberty, Recovering from Religion, Atheist Republic, International Association of Atheists, Atheist Alliance International. These are organizations that are good organizations, and they're not woke. Okay, so I want to make sure that those organizations are acknowledged. Ex-Muslims of North America, these are not woke, good atheist organizations that are still doing the job. But the big organizations are gone.
Do you think that any sort of organization can survive without becoming a church or without that social glue of a belief system? Can people congregate without belief? And whether or not that belief has a God structure or some other structure, can people act in concert over time without belief putting them together or belief taking them over?
They need a commonality, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to get a group of people that are completely unrelated, they'll just naturally find a commonality and group off into subgroups. So we're a social animal, and we have to understand. So yes, people can congregate, and they can congregate without a God belief, obviously. But I think that what we need to do is congregate in a safe space. And when I say a safe space, I don't mean a safe space from controversy. I mean a safe space from the people who want safe spaces. I mean a safe space from the people who want those. We need to congregate away from the wokeists. We need to bring diversity back into vogue. And when I say diversity, I'm not talking about skin color, and I'm not talking about sex or gender. I'm talking about thought.
Yeah.
And that's what's gone here. That's the part of diversity that's gone. People. This has become such a mantra. Says diversity is good. Diversity is good. Diversity is good. Well, why is diversity good? Diversity is not good because you're giving brown people advantages. Diversity is good because diversity of thought adds value to a team. That's why diversity is good. It's not diversity isn't good because the average color of a team is browner than it used to be. Or because more people have sex with people like them than other people. That's not diversity anymore. That's last year's diversity. That's like diversity from the last century. This diversity, what we should be looking for is a sophisticated diversity. The diversity that I worked for, the diversity of, well, it's not just that I'm going to put a brown person up on stage. I need to put somebody up there who's an expert, whose culture is going to be different, whose information is going to be different. I'm not going to put a brown person up on stage to say the same words that a white person would say. That's tokenism. If I'm going to put a brown person on stage, I'm going to put a brown person on stage because they add something, because they're brown, or because they're of their position, or because they know stuff. And it's something that we really have to grapple with, because if all we're doing is replacing white folk with brown folk, then we're going to dissolve.
Well, what's going to be replicated is the bare bones of a structure. It makes me think of the analogy of wood petrifying. Like the molecules are being swapped out, but the structure just becomes more and more rigid. It's no longer a living structure. It's just being swapped out by different minerals under the same pattern.
But what about productivity? I mean, listen, Benjamin.
Productivity or proactivity?
Productivity.
Okay.
Productivity. I mean, again, I'm just using myself as an example, okay? But it's so easy and obvious. My successor at American Atheist is doing much less of a job than I did, okay? There's a lot less happening. Productivity has gone down. And that's going to keep happening when you take people who are qualified and replacing them with less qualified people because of whatever immutable characteristics that they have. Mm-hmm. You know, I got to say, I'm 53 years old. I'm a Gen X white guy. Well, I'm an Ashkenazi Jew, but I'm a Gen X white guy. And I have fought my entire career to equalize the force, to bring in women, to bring in people of color. When I have had power, I've used that power. When I haven't had power, I've used whatever power I had in privilege in order to equalize and not to equity eyes, but to remove bigotry, remove the glass ceiling. I did good. I'm proud of my diversity efforts over the past 3 decades of work. And for people to come to me and say, okay, Mr. White Guy, you're white, you've had your privilege, now it's time for you to step back. Fuck you. Fuck you. I mean, I've been working my ass off here. Mm-hmm. And even though I've been a white guy this whole time, I've been working really hard. I've been studying, I've been working nights, I've been working weekends, I've been working vacations, I've been working really hard. No, I'm not going to step aside. I opened the door. Now everybody's a partner, and now everybody can work as equal partners, and we can talk to each other. No, I'm not going to shut up. No, I'm not going to sit down. No, I'm not going to quit and step aside. No, I'm not going to do that. You're equal now. You can earn your way like I did. And you're welcome, by the way. I mean, there's so much disdain for white guys. I mean, have you read White Fragility?
I lived white fragility. I'm Mr. Evergreen here.
Oh, right. Of course you're Mr. Evergreen. I mean, this entire concept that only white people can be racist and all white people are racist means that everything anti-racism is actually anti-white person. That's what it is.
But how does mercy, forgiveness, and redemption, how are they valuable for somebody who suffers like you've suffered when faced with betrayal and cancellation? How do mercy, forgiveness, and redemption, are they valuable for you anymore, or is it just resentment, anger, and vengeance? Right? Isn't that a big decision to make?
Decided. I'm still very, very angry. I'm not doing the vengeance thing. I never did the vengeance thing.
Mm.
But I'm still very, very angry. I'm severely damaged.
And you're not
But
talking, are you speaking financially, or are you speaking in your
financial,
faith for other people, for humanity?
everything is destroyed. I mean, financially, I'm employed, which I'm very happy about. Thank you, Andrew Conru. But financially, I lost everything. I lost my life.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my career. I lost my family. I lost my friends. I lost everything. And I lost it because people lied, not because I got caught doing something wrong. It's not like I actually hurt anybody and got called for it. They lied. And so when you're dealing with mercy, forgiveness, and redemption, from when you're dealing with that, I mean, the amount of anger, it's palpable. I can feel it in my veins. And I've been trying very hard to practice what I preach and to forgive whatever her name is now. I have a lot of anger about those people, and I'm trying to humanize them. Cognitive behavioral therapy is a thing. Did a horrible, horrible, horrible thing to me. Is she an objectively evil person? She did what I think is an objectively evil thing. But, so I'm trying to bring myself into, what brought her to that place, what made her want to do that, what makes her sleep at night, what allows to say the things that he says. I try to put myself into their place to try and, forgive them. And I have come a long way in that. I don't think any forgiveness for real is going to be forthcoming, but I'm still trying to identify, I'm trying to humanize them.
Yeah.
And I would definitely say that has helped. I would definitely say that the mercy that I've given them in the humanization that I've tried to push onto them in my brain has helped me. And I think that is something that everybody should do. Which is why I think every progressive should try and say something nice about Donald Trump. Just do it. Look, don't demonize. Okay, everybody's got a little bit of good in them, even Donald Trump.
Okay.
And even Republicans. When it comes to forgiveness is really hard because I've been hurt so bad. I lost so much, and the pain is like nothing I could describe. So I think forgiveness is a big word. It is something that I'm going to strive towards, and I am striving towards. It's hard to forgive somebody who maliciously ruined your life for personal gain, which is exactly what happened. And I'm trying to do that. And every place that I go in that, see my hands, I'm fiddling with my hands because it makes me. When I try to go there.
This is the problem of evil. Like, this is a deep, fundamental question that has spurred a lot of religious discussion. I mean, you're toying with something so fundamental.
Yeah.
You're toying with trying to make something that's inhumanly big a human-sized problem. Like, how do you deal with something that strikes you to your core and be bigger than that, even when it destroys you? And a lot of people have used religious concepts to bridge that gap between the how huge this problem is with betrayal and with how small you are with the ability to not be able to let go, not be able to forgive, not be able to turn the cheek.
For me, the thing has been the free will argument, the Sam Harris free will argument. If people are automatons, how can you be furious? And if I don't like it, but I do agree with it to at least some substantial degree. To some substantial degree, we don't have free will. And to whatever that degree is, aren't responsible. And it's hard to say that, but it's true. And I want to be really, really furious with them for the rest of my life. I want to say these people are bad pieces of crap people who should just, be ostracized and be, shove them out into the fucking wilderness and whatever. There's a piece of my brain that wants to do that. But the humanist says that we have to go beyond that because people are complex. And people don't do bad things because people are bad. People do bad things because they think it's the right thing to do at the time. Even if it's a horrible, immoral thing, and even if it's a painful thing, and even if it destroys me, even if it destroys their friend, which it did, or a person who thought they were their friend, which it did, there has to be some nuance here. There has to be a place where people can say, all right, well, you know what, whatever they did, in the video that I made, I said that the people walking through the streets of Paris shooting civilians in the streets thought they were doing good at the time.
Which time are we talking about? Because Paris does that periodically.
I'm talking about the Islamic terrorists, the Charlie Hebdo, the people who flew the planes into the buildings of the World Trade Center thought they were doing God's work. And, I am trying to be the strong person who forgives somebody who did something really, really bad to him. And it is helping that I'm getting along that path. It is helping that I'm able to say, okay, there's an X percent that these people are completely mindless automatons, and I can't blame them for that. Whatever that X percent is, I can't blame them for being mindless automatons, as we all are. And, I will also say that makes me feel a little bit better about my behavior, my mistakes, because I did make mistakes here. Let's not forget that. I did cheat on my wife. I did fuck a board member's wife. Those are clearly mistakes that I've made, and I hold responsibility for them. But at the same time, I don't have free will either to the same degree that they do. So I'm trying to be easy on everybody. And I'm trying to, give everybody the mercy, including myself. If my best friend were to do exactly what I did, I would be easy on him. And so I'm trying to be easy on myself in the same way. So that's mercy and that's forgiveness. Redemption is a different story.
Do you have any power over that? Redemption has to come from outside of you, doesn't it?
Bullshit.
Can you save yourself?
Bullshit.
Can
I have decided to redeem myself.
Okay.
I have decided to redeem myself, and the reason that I decided to redeem myself is because I actually didn't do any of what I was accused of except for cheating on my wife. I didn't do all that stuff. So in my head, and this is a really, really important point, I have my own issues, okay? I have my own mental issues that I like to keep private, but I haven't been able to keep private ever since this all went down. And one of those issues is a guilt-shame complex. It's part of my key functions in my brain. I own problems, even if they're not mine. If it's a problem, I can fix it. And if I don't fix it, I feel guilty for not fixing it. I feel ownership of the problem, even if I didn't cause it. And if everything falls to shit, it's surely something I could have prevented. And so I have this this cycle in my brain that has been, I guess you'd call it a psychosis, whatever you want to call it. It's a complex.
Sounds like a deep part of your operating system. That's
it is.
Just constantly.
It is. It's exactly that, Benjamin. It's very deep. It's part of my operating system. Ever since I was a child, I was the smart kid. I was the eloquent kid. And I could fix a problem. And if there was a problem, I saw it, I owned it, I fixed it. That's how I get my external validation. I have low self-esteem, so all my validation comes from external. So I see a problem, I own it, it's my fault, I fix it, I get the credit, yay me. And that's how I progressed in life. And if I didn't fix it, I just went into a guilt shame hole and, I couldn't fix it, I failed, blah, blah, blah. And what ended up happening was that those failures would motivate me to do better. In a very twisted fashion, that the psychosis would push me to excel because I didn't want the guilt and the shame, but I owned every problem, so it was already mine. And and when all of this happened, I owned everything that I was supposed to have done. I felt the guilt and the shame for all the stuff that I'm supposed to have done. I felt the guilt and the shame for the pox, for the mark that I put on the movement. And I felt terrible because I loved the movement and I did this whole terrible thing. And then I realized I actually didn't do that. I had sex with a board member's wife. They did all the rest. And so I'm sitting there and I'm when I realized this, and I was thirsting for redemption, trying to get it every single way. And when I realized that I was owning problems that weren't mine, when I realized that I was blaming myself for stuff that other people did, lies other people told, and I was accepting responsibility for that, I realized that I was seeking a redemption that not only would never come, but that I didn't deserve the lack of redemption. I don't deserve to need redemption. I do not deserve to need redemption. Yeah, I deserve to need redemption. I shouldn't have slept with a board member's wife. If people want to redeem me for that or not, that's up to them. But that's at least something that I did. But if it's something that I didn't do, no, I don't need redemption. And so I will be moving forward with my career having attained redemption. If there's an atheist event, I'm going. And if people don't like it because I'm there because I'm not redeemed, it's their fault. And if there's if I have had interactions with AHA, SSA, FBB, and CFI over the past couple of years, over the past few months. And they're lost causes. I think they need redemption. I think they need to come to Jesus and talk to their members about the separation of church and state, about people who are atheists and not progressives, about reaching across the aisle and working toward a common goal. I think the atheist movement, the larger organizations in the atheist movement, I think they are worthy of trying for redemption. I think they are they've left the game, and they're not going to come back because, of course, if they come back, it goes back to the mercy thing. Okay, if they come back, they are betraying everyone. If they say anything along the lines of, well, Donald Trump had good hair today, right? If they say anything positive, anything outside of progressivism, they'll lose their shirt. So they're not going to come back. They're afraid they're going to lose their shirt. They're afraid of the bounce back, of the pushback, and the pushback is hard because, like I said, mobs are awful.
Yeah. How do you, when faced with something like you were talking about with this guilt shame cycle that seems to be very dynamic, very powerful, forces you into situations where you actually are productive. Like it's an engine. It's got some pretty. It sounds like it has some pretty negative drawbacks to it, but it forces you to be productive. Now Correct. You're in this apartment. You're in this apartment. So with other people who are facing the same situation with this hyperactive driving force inside of them, in a sense, how do you gain perspective, redemption? How do you become free of that or put it in its place so that it's not driving you totally nuts in a confined space, or facing a crisis like we are right now?
Well, unlike the enemies of social justice and wokeism, the enemy of the people right now is actually real. The COVID virus is real. And it's actually going to kill people, and it's actually going to make people sick.
It's going to cancel you thoroughly.
Yeah, it's really going to cancel you. And I think this next month or so that I'm going to be cooped up in this apartment, and that we're all going to be cooped up in our apartments, is a great time for us to really consider what is true.
Yes.
What is real?
And what's valuable.
What's valuable? And does truth matter? Does truth matter? I mean, and what does that mean?
That's a really dangerous question.
It's a really dangerous question. Because, of course, truth matters. The answer, I'll give you the cheat sheet. Yes, the truth matters. and finding it matters. Okay, well, how do you find truth? How do you know you're right? How do you know the patriarchy is real? How do you know the gender pay gap is real? How do you know the system is racist? How do you know? And look at the data. And look at the people who are suffering this and look at the white guys. For crying out loud, folks, look at the white guys who have been pushed. And I hate to fucking even talk like this.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to talk like this.
Yeah, me too.
I sound like a racist when I talk like this. But, well, if you read What's Her Name, I Am a Racist, which is an absolutely asinine statement. I think, that's a great idea. I think everybody should read White Fragility.
Oh, D'Angelo.
It's such a horrible piece of shit. It's such a piece of shit. What is it? It's right here. I got it here somewhere. Here it is. Okay.
It's basically the Little Red Book of Evergreen.
This is the Little Red Book of Evergreen. This is horrible. If you watch what James Lindsay and Peter Boghossian put together, the Trojan Horse series, and you look at, I would suggest people should watch the Trojan Horse series and then read White Fragility. Because one of the things that White Fragility does is it changes what truth is. And that's the problem that we're facing. What is truth? What White Fragility does, she says, okay, privilege exists. And we know privilege exists. Okay, I'm a white guy. In a majority white country, there's a privilege there. I'm a man in a country that's been male dominated all this time. There's privilege there. Okay. Those are true statements. To take that and then with no knowledge and with no data to back her up, and I read the book, no data to back her up, to say that privilege is the sole cause of all the problems that are happening in this country, that this privilege exists, and I'm just going to imagine that it's huge.
Yeah.
That it's huge. Look at this.
It's the water you swim in.
It exists, therefore it's huge, therefore it's all-encompassing, therefore all white people are racist. We're just going to change the version of the word. We're just going to change the definition of the word. And
to what end?
So to what end is the thing? So there's an undervalue here. There's an underlying thing here, because if you change the meaning of the word racist to broaden it, then you can demonize people who aren't being demonized. Okay? Now all of a sudden it's not the racists, because if it's the racists that the black people are fighting, then the black people have to go find the racists. And then you have to say, well, who's a racist and who's not? And how do you know what's a racist and what's not a racist? And then you have to go to the women and say, okay, well, who's a misogynist and who's not? And who's that's a very, very hard thing, because then you have to make a decision and you have to debate. Of course, it's true. Of course, there's nuance, because nuance is real, and the world isn't easy because you want it to be. But it is much easier to take that extrapolation and blow it up to say all white people are racist. And because we're going to mix and we're going to change it again, we're going to change the definition of racism again. So racist used to be Archie Bunker, but now it's a white person in a majority white country with a white history. That's racism. And only that is racism. And that's power. And so racism can't go up, it can only go down. So you've got this demonization of all white people and this coddling of all non-white people. So your lived experience is yours, and you can never be wrong if you experience bigotry. You can't imagine bigotry. If you experience bigotry, it's always true, and it's always the problem of every white person. Mm-hmm. And as a Gen Xer who worked hard to take that shit away, I reject that guilt. I reject that guilt. I am not guilty about the patriarchy because the patriarchy isn't real. If there's a gender pay gap, and there's the gender pay gap is separated into things that are a woman's choice, like the hours she works or the place that she goes or the things that she does, and misogyny, I'm not going to pay you as much because you're a woman. That is the problem. Misogyny, the part of the pay gap that's misogyny, the part of the pay gap that is I'm not going to pay you as much because you're just a woman. That is my problem. Okay? That is my problem. As a good guy, white guy, that's my problem. The part of the inequity of race, that is, I'm not going to hire you because you're a black person and I don't like black people, that's my problem. Okay? Black people not doing well on tests because they don't have the highest, they regard education as being white. So they have a low regard for education in their culture, speaking generally now. That is 0% my problem. That's not my problem at all. The fact that a lot of black kids are raised out of wedlock in a single parent home, and that directly relates to how people react in schools and how well they do in schools, that is 0% my problem. I'm not guilty about that. Why am I feeling guilty about that? That's not my place to feel guilty. My place to feel guilty is when there's a white guy that says, or a white person that says, I'm not going to hire this person because they're Latino. Well, that's fucked up. That's bigotry. And we're on the same side to fight that. And if I sit on my ass and let that happen, I should feel guilty because I'm part of the problem. But that's the only part of the problem that I should feel guilty about. That's the only part of the problem that's actually my problem. The part that's bigotry, not the inequity in itself. The inequity that's coming out is part of the fact. I'll just talk in general about black inequity right now. There's a part of it that's about the anti-education mentality in the black culture. There's a part of it that's about the anti-marriage part of the black culture. And then there's a part of it that's other factors. And then there's a part of it that is, I'm not hiring you because you're black. That's the racism. That's the only racism in the inequity. That's the only racism. And that's the only part that anyone outside of that culture should feel guilty about. And as equal partners, because we're all equal partners in this world, we're all equal citizens in this country. As equal partners, we should be speaking like this. And for somebody to come to me and say, look at the inequity, look at what happened at Evergreen, right? Look at the inequity. This inequity is all about racism. You bad folks are, you white folks are bad. That's what white fragility says. It's crap. It's bullshit guilt. It's passive aggressive, unnecessary, false guilt that's being used to manipulate people. Well, I understand why Beverly D'Angelo was it Beverly or was it Robin?
Robin.
Robin, I understand why she wrote it. It makes a great book, okay? It sells a great book. You're innocent, everything you say is right, and everybody who's not like you is wrong, and they're bad for being wrong. They're fragile for being wrong. Okay, it's a great book. Of course it's going to sell a lot of books, but it's going to be really fucking divisive like crazy because it's anti-human. It's anti-responsibility, and it's anti-nuance. Everybody white is racist. Only white people are racist. Everybody person of color is a victim. Every person of color is a victim? No, you're not. They're not. Every woman is a victim? No, you're not. We live in the freest society on the planet. Every person of color is not a victim any more than I'm a victim for being Jewish. Sorry.
How do you keep people from, because you have, like you said earlier, you said you have the guilt shame complex, like cycling. I think a lot of us have that, and I think Robin DiAngelo has that, and she's figured out how to hijack other people's guilt complexes. And that's what I saw at Evergreen. They indoctrinated everybody. I resisted it at every step of the way. I just became quieter and quieter, but they were just hijacking my guilt. They're trying to worm into my shame and guilt in order to produce a result. How do you inoculate yourself from a virus that wants to take over your guilt immune system, that whole system, and how do you foster an awareness of when people are doing that? Because like you were saying, there's certain good reasons for us to have guilt. There's certain productive factors to that. There's certain things that if it gets hijacked, though, you can start a cultural revolution. You could actually have people go around and slaughter their teachers and slaughter rich people if you do it just right.
Yeah.
So how do you stop that?
I think that when you asked me that question, my mother came into my mind. And my mother came into my mind because as much as I loved her, she was a master at guilt manipulation, which is why I have my complex, and it's why I can talk with such knowledge on the topic. I believe that the way I combated my guilt with my mother is the answer to your question. And I believe that comes down to talking to people as equals and calling people on their shit and staring down your own racism. Here's something that's crazy, okay? Now, here's something that I discovered, and I don't know if too many people understand this. You can actually talk to a black person. You can actually talk to them. And you can actually talk to people of color. You can actually learn about them. And you can actually speak to them as equals, as partners, which we are. And when your partner does something that's kind of bullshit, like my mother used to do, you can speak to them that way. You can speak to them as partners without being disrespectful, without being rude, without being nasty, as partners. I was married for 28 years. We had fights, and I would speak to my wife as a partner. I would call my partner on her shit. And when somebody says to me, all right, well, we need to do something bad to white folks or whatever, call them on their shit. When somebody says, oh, well, we live in a city where we live in a massively racist country, call them on their shit. Really? Tell me about the racism that you've actually literally experienced. Really? Tell me about the racist policies that are holding you back. Really? Tell me about the systemic patriarchy that's holding women down today. Really? Tell me about it and give me details, or else I'm going to tell you that you're full of shit. Say those words. Make people who are making these assertions defend themselves. Mm-hmm. Because the fact is that so much of this hysteria is baseless. There is no base. There's no systemic racism. If there is systemic racism, it's much smaller than it used to be. If there's systemic patriarchy, it's tiny. Tiny. And guess what? It's not holding anyone back. Neither of those things is holding anyone back. Everybody can succeed in this country. We're the freest country ever. We are a very, very, very free country. Maybe it's not the freest country ever, but we're extremely free. There's nothing holding people back.
I want to go all the way back to the very, very beginning, and propose that this time of hardship and crisis that we're on the brink of, I think things have not really started yet. It can be a reality check, and it might just burn that the cancel culture, the wokeism, the progressivism. It might prove all that stuff to be a luxury that just doesn't matter anymore. It has nothing to do with survival at all. It's just it's power games that only operate when everybody is suffused with abundance and hasn't really experienced hardship for a generation, 2 generations, 3 generations.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying before, that the enemy is real now. Mm-hmm. It's not about the patriarchy. It's about something that's real, something that exists, and something that doesn't give a crap if you're a Republican or a Democrat, and something that doesn't give a crap if what your intersectionality is. And I think what we're going to see now, I hope, what we're going to see now is Well, let me restate that. I think what we're going to see now is some people who are on the woke side are going to find humanism and reach out to people who are on the non-woke side, and they will be pushed out of wokeism as impure by people who are still woke. And I hope that it will decimate wokeism to see people in need. That people will be in need, because wokeism, one of the things that it does, it's a very, very dehumanizing thing. You're just an intersectionality. You're just an intersectional number. You're not.
It takes that automization of everybody. That's the anti-free will argument, and turns them. They literally call themselves bodies. It turns everybody into a cue ball, just bouncing around in the system.
And I think that once people's parents and grandparents start dying, and once people start chiding other people, and this is what's going to happen for reaching out. Like, I reached out to my grandfather on his deathbed just to tell him I loved him, even though he's a Trump supporter. Okay? That's going to happen, and then people are going to hate on those people. And I think that is going to show, I hope, that will show the world just how vapid and destructive and valueless the social justice movement has become. And when I say the social justice movement has become, social justice was a good idea, okay? Intersectionality is a valid concept. I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying that what it has become, this unhuman, this dehumanizing pseudo-religion of expulsion and cancel culture and just plain old ordinary hate, I think it's going to die. At least I hope it does. For crying out loud, I hope it does. You know, they're actually canceling advanced placement classes in Seattle schools now because there are too many Asians and whites in it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's inequitable. It's not equalizing.
It's going to slow this whole country down.
Well,
And again, it's about this idea that the fact that there aren't a lot of black kids in these programs means that there's bigotry against the black kids, since all black kids are the same as all Asian kids, which would be great if that were true. But it's not, because the Asian culture and the black culture are diametrically opposed when it comes to education. And so when you've got kids who are Asians being punished for getting Bs, and kids in the black community chiding each other for getting Bs because you're doing too well, because you're acting too white, you're going to get disparate numbers in your advanced placement classes in schools. And that's 0% bigotry. That's 100% the fault of the black community and 0% the fault of anyone else. And this what goes back to what you were saying before, Benjamin. How are we going to stop this frothing? Well, that's because people have to talk to each other as partners. White people have to talk to their partners in the black community. Guess what? It's not our fault that the black kids aren't in these advanced placement classes, except for the fact that there's this much bigotry. If there's this much bigotry stopping black kids from well, fuck that bigotry. Let's work together to get rid of that bigotry, because we don't have place for bigotry in our country. But y'all got to stick with your kids. And y'all got to tell your kids that education is good. And that's not my problem. And that's not my guilt. And so when you say to me, oh, look at you, white guy, look at the racism in you because all of the AP classes are filled with whites and Asians and Latinos, but not enough black people. This much of that, whatever it is that's bigotry, whatever it is that says, okay, because this kid is black, we're going to give him a disadvantage. Fuck that. We need to destroy that. Whatever gives black kids a disadvantage, whatever gives any kids a disadvantage because of their race, we got to destroy that. But that means we got to find it. That means we got to have we have to have anti-racist policies throughout our system. Oh, guess what? We already do. We have to be able to fire people who are bigoted and penalize people for racism. Oh, guess what? We do that too. Okay? So we've got systems in place to stop any sort of systemic racism. We've got a lot of systemic anti-racism policies in place that are very well functioning. Again, look it up. Think about data. I'm not giving you mantra. There's data here. Okay, I don't remember the Harvard professor who just published that big piece on black people getting shot by cops. An African American Harvard professor, brilliant guy apparently, did this fantastic study on blacks getting shot by cops and found out that in like-for-like comparisons, black people are actually getting shot 24% less than white people in like-for-like situations. That's good. That's systemic anti-racism. Okay, that's systemic anti-racism. Black people are more likely to be roughed up by cops in like-for-like situations. That's racism. Black people are less likely to be shot by cops in like-for-like situations. That's systemic anti-racism policies that are effective.
Well, okay, wouldn't pure anti-racism, and this is just a devil's advocate.
Yeah, please.
I have to say this. Oh, I have to say it to the audience. Wouldn't anti-racist just make everybody like equally beat by cops, equally shot by cops, or? Well,
yeah. I mean, they would look for equity. Okay, and anti-racist is going to look for equity. If black people are 13% of the population, then 13% of the people shot by cops should be black. And that assumes that everybody's equal. That assumes that there's not a substantial problem with black-on-black violence. There is. And that's not my problem. That's not my fault. That's 0% my fault. It's 100% the fault of the black community. You got to fix that shit. But when you say, oh, well, blacks are getting shot a lot, stop committing crimes. But when you say in like-for-like comparisons, in like-for-like situations, black people are getting shot 24% less likely than whites, and this is from an African-American Harvard professor. These are numbers that we need to care about. These are numbers that go against the mantras that we're all seeing. These are numbers that we need to look at and understand so that we don't demonize all white people like D'Angelo does. Yeah. So that we don't tell kids, black kids, that they live in a horrible racist society where all whites are racist, only whites are racists, black people can't be racists, and we live in a society where really they have no chance of success. They're telling kids this, and it's not true. It's not true. You know, as part of my job for the Conwu Foundation, we have been giving away money to educational organizations. And that's been part of my job, to go to these educational organizations and learn about them and evaluate them and see if they're worth donating to. And so I've had substantial experience over the past 6 months talking to educational organizations. And you know what I found? I found 0 of them that are saying, well, we try to take fewer black kids. I found 0 of them of any sort of systemic bigotry. They're all about, oh, we want to get those black kids, we want to get those Latino kids, we want to get the underprivileged kids. Great. Good stuff, wonderful stuff. That's not bigotry against black people, okay? I have not seen any of it, and I'm open-minded. Show it to me. If I'm wrong on anything that I'm saying in this video, if you got evidence of systemic racism, I want to see it. If you got evidence of systemic patriarchy, I want to see it, because I want to grow. I want to learn. I'm new here, okay? I'm new to this thing, but I've been reading on it a lot, and I'm not seeing any good stuff here. I'm seeing a lot of lies, and I'm seeing a lot of demonization off of a fake devil of this horrible, racist, sexist country that we have. In a country, I mean, it's complete bullshit. Black kids have, and kids of color have a substantial number of resources available to them. All they have to do is succeed. And I'm sorry, that's true.
I wonder if part of a return, one path of recovery from wokeism, progressivism, which has substantially infected a number of very big institutions, especially on the West Coast, the government, the education system, et cetera, et cetera. One move away from that would be humanism. Another move would be civic pride, some sort of pride in our country. And how do you initiate pride in our country when the Trump supporter, which is evil, has co-opted the flag, and that there's this huge move within the far left to hate on America constantly, and to hate and to hate and to hate. And how do you inspire that pride again, that nationalism, and would the pandemic again be the perfect opportunity for us to find a common good and a common identity?
That's a great problem. A common enemy is a great way to unite the country. That's a good point. I think to using a common enemy like the pandemic to join the country is a good idea. Would you re-ask your question again, please? It slipped my mind.
Well, I'm just wondering. I'm trying to get at your conception of a replacement for wokeism, and what the concept that you've promulgated so far in this interview is humanism. And I'm wondering, like, there's different levels of humanism. So, civic humanism would be patriotism or something higher than the individual. But humanism begins on an interpersonal level, but it eventually needs to transcend that.
So my patriotism, I'm a patriotic person, but I'm a patriotic person because I'm loyal to the concepts which I believe are very good for America: capitalism, freedom of expression, freedom of the Bill of Rights, essentially. I think that when we're looking at the far right holding on to the flag and the far left, the 1619 Project is a good example of let's just destroy civic ideas. Let's just label America a horrible piece of shit nation from its beginning with no redeeming values. I think that's horribly destructive. And horribly self-serving and ignorant and not true. I got to hand it to Glenn Lowry, Dr. Glenn Lowry from Brown University, who's a big, firm opponent of this, and I'm slowly, but maybe not so slowly, but surely becoming quite a fan of his. I think we need to highlight what we've done, but the problem is that what we've done. Everything that what we've done is predicated on, it's been done by white guys. Okay, that's just the truth. It's been done by white guys. And that doesn't mean it's not good. That doesn't mean we can't take credit for it. Like I said before, I'm not literally white. I'm literally Ashkenazi Jew. But I can still be proud, and I'm only third generation American. But I can still take pride in what our founding fathers did. I can still take pride in the foundation of a great system that is capitalism that took millions and millions of people out of poverty. That's something that I can take pride in. And I think that maybe one of the things that we could do, if you look at Stephen Pinker's book, Enlightenment Now.
Enlightenment Now, okay.
Enlightenment Now. That book, one of the things I liked about that was it was full of numbers and really good examples of how much things are better than they used to be. And I think that if we are going to come out of this, it's going to be facts that get us out of this. It's going to be facts that we've got good accomplishments. And yeah, the accomplishments were done by white guys, and they're good accomplishments anyways. Even if they're white. I mean, how are we even having this conversation?
Because there's an industry of problematization. I messed that up, but and I think that it's a bubble. Like the grievance bubble is about to pop, or possibly about to pop, because it's so inflated. They, again, looking at Evergreen, they took the example of the civil rights. They explicitly said this several times. I have footage of it. They said that the civil rights were a great thing to happen, but we're nowhere near the finish line. This work goes on forever. And if you think you've gotten there, there's still more that we need to do. So they took the brunt of the civil rights energy and transposed it onto the minutia of disparity in this day and age.
Correct. And that's where we have to call our partners on their shit. That's where we get back to, how do we stop this? We have to call our partners on their shit. Oh, the work has yet to be done? Quantify it. Tell me about it. Show me the numbers. We still have problems. We still have systemic bigotry. Quantify it. Show me the numbers. There's been affirmative action for 30 years. There's been anti-racist policies throughout our system for 30 years. There are systemic anti-racism policies in the police force right now which are effective at saving black lives, to the detriment of white lives, by the way. But they're saving black lives. Black lives already clearly matter. Does anybody care? We have to look at numbers. We have to call our people, our partners, on their shit. Just as they are calling us on what they perceive as our shit, we can't look at that and let the guilt say, oh, I'm so sorry because I'm white and I feel so bad. We have to say, oh, really? Show me. We have to say, oh, really? You know, one of the things that I remember from Evergreen was talk is violence, and most importantly, I am, as a black person, I am not responsible for showing you the racism. You're a white person. You're responsible for learning about the racism. That's bullshit. It's called burden of proof, and you don't get an excuse from burden of proof just because you're black. If you have an assertion to make, the fact that you're black or white or yellow or red does not make it correct. What makes it correct is facts and data. So if you're going to say there's bigotry, if you're going to say there's racism, if you're going to say there's patriarchy, my friends, if it's there, I'm with you to destroy it with you. If it's there, I am on your side to destroy that shit. If it's not there, then you're just full of shit. And it's time for you to work harder and stand up and be an adult.
What happens when the data, to transpose that again onto the current precipice that we're on, what happens when the data is absolutely terrifying? The data sends you into a state of complete fear. Like, how do you manage your own humanity, center of gravity, when facing something that is as terrible as what we potentially could be facing?
Well, yeah.
Where do you keep your courage and your proportionality?
The first thing to do is not to hide from the data. Okay? First thing to do is not to hide from the data. The Saturday morning cartoons written true, knowledge is power. Okay? And so knowing what the truth is the first step to at least dealing with it. I think that when we're dealing with horribly terrifying numbers, we need to allow ourselves some time to panic. We need to allow our friends some time to panic and react. But then we have to deal with facts. Okay, if there's a meteor heading for this planet, if there's a meteor heading for the planet Earth, I want to know about it. Okay, if we're all going to die, I want to know about it, and then we can deal with whatever we can do. If we're going to lose like 99% of the population, well, I'm going to try and be in that 1%. How do I do that and take that chance and try and make that happen? If we have terrifying data, like we may have with this pandemic, but even if we don't. No matter what the data is the data. We have to know what the data is. We have to see the data. If it's terrifying, then we're going to be terrified. But at least we're going to be aware of what the data is. If the data goes against everything I say, if somebody comes up to me after this show and says, Dave, I found data supporting systemic patriarchy, quantitative data supporting systemic patriarchy. Look, well, that's great. Then I'm wrong. And the data is right because, that's the thing, folks. If the data says something that's different from your position and the data is good, you're wrong. Okay? That's the truth. If human perception is not data, your experience is not data, your lived experience is not truth, okay? Your ancient wisdom is not truth. The data, properly corrected, properly analyzed, scientifically formulated, is the truth, or at least as close as we can get to it. And that's the stuff that we have to get to. That's the stuff that we have to really, really work with. Because otherwise you're just working with hope. You're just working with fiction. And that's just, it's head in the sand, hoping that it's going to go away. And, in this world, we have so many goddamn participation trophies of people saying, I like this, or at least I think this way, so I'm going to say that I'm right. But the data doesn't match. And we have to get beyond the participation trophies now. We have to get past all of the, you're right because you think it's right. You have your truth and I have my truth. We have to get past all that shit because the data is real and the world is real. The facts are real. We have to learn what they are and deal with them. If we doesn't like them, it's too bad for us. Okay? The data is the thing. And, that's what I used to stand by when I was president of American Atheists, and that's what the entire atheist movement has now, or at least the large atheist movement has just kind of abandoned. Truth matters. Data matters. Facts matter. If they don't, then we're just playing pretend. We're just going to be a world of participation trophies.
It's really difficult for human beings to hold on to data as something meaningful or valuable. We like to stencil in a little bit of rosy, cartoonish beauty into that which we're looking at. And at least data doesn't predict action, and data doesn't tell us what to do with the data. But so how do you be sure that you're projecting meaning onto the data and intention, using the data in the proper way to get the right result? How do you proceed away from fear into some sort of proactive, productive stance towards the horror?
So that's a great question, and the answer is peer review. Okay, that's what it is. It's all about peer review. Okay, when you're dealing with hard numbers and you're dealing with your interpretation of those numbers. Yes, the only way to really counter cognitive dissonance, to really counter skewing that data, is peer review. And so when you've got a tremendous amount of quantitative data that a bunch of people can see, I mean, that's the best of worlds, right? You look at the quantitative data and you see it and you divine it. When I wrote Fighting God, I took a lot of quantitative data from Google searches and Yahoo searches, and I managed that data and I manipulated it, and I said, look, this is the data that I found, and here's what I think it shows. And when I put it in the book and published the book, I submitted it for peer review. That's essentially what I did. I said, hey, everybody, look at this. And if everybody comes back and says, hey, Dave, your data's full of shit, well, then I know I'm full of shit. But they didn't, so I knew that I was right. And that's how we do it. We see the data, we come up with conclusions, we compare our conclusions to other people, we look at experts, not people with agendas, but actual data experts, actual economists, actual pandemic specialists, not bloggers, not vloggers, not people who have degrees in weak studies and grievance studies. We look for people who have science degrees, literal science degrees, and we trust them because they know how to do this stuff. And they have peer review. So there's not just like one person. There's a whole bunch of scientists out there, and they're all peer reviewing, and they're also social scientists, and they're all peer reviewing all these studies. And that's how we know what's right and wrong. And when we skip that part, when we bypass that and we say, okay, I don't need the data. My lived experience is the data enough. And I don't really need to worry about that. Well, we live in a participation trophy society where people can't tell each other that they're wrong. And I think that the problem in the society that we're having right now is that nobody is calling each other on their shit. Nobody is saying, no, this isn't my fault. Nobody is saying, no, I'm not going to feel guilty about this. Nobody's saying, no, you're wrong to push that guy out, to push that woman out, or to keep that woman in and push that person in. It's time for us to step out of this participation trophy funk and start acting like adults. Everybody can be wrong. Even if you're white or black or gay or straight, you can all be wrong. And not only can you be wrong, but you can also be a liar. You can also be completely full of shit and be a gay, black, lesbian, feminist, whatever you want to call yourself. You can be really, really intersectional and be a horrible fucking person. You can be really, really intersectional and be a self-serving, crazy fucking liar. You can. And how do we know the difference between somebody? If we're going to say, okay, well, I'm just going to say the white people are going to sit down and let the black people talk. Well, what if the black person's wrong? What if the black person is lying? What if the black person's malicious and full of shit? What if the black person's just crazy? We have to stop pretending that people can't handle contests. That when you say that white people or men need to sit down, you're insulating yourself from pushback. You're insulating yourself from being contested. You're just saying, okay, I'm going to use guilt for something that is not deserved to stop people from contesting the more guilt that I'm going to put on them. No. No, no. I have been told a few times that I should shut up about feminism because I'm not a woman, and I should shut up about gay issues because I'm not gay. No, no, no. I'm a cishet white guy, and I have valid opinions, and I'm going to keep talking. And if you don't like my opinions, you can leave, or you can discount my opinions. But no, I'm not going to stop talking, because sometimes people are full of shit. Mm-hmm. Sometimes women lie about sexual assault. Sometimes they lie through their fucking teeth just for personal gain and take down their friends with lies about sexual assault. If that can happen to me 3 times, I'm not taking anybody at their word ever again, just because they're a woman, or just because they're black, or just because they're whatever.
I don't think look at something deeper than that.
Benjamin, there's supposed to be a girl code. There's supposed to be a girl code that says women will not lie about sexual assault, because by lying about sexual assault, it makes it harder for other women to come out and be truthful about sexual assault. This is what's supposed to be. We're there. Mm-hmm. But guess what? Here's something crazy. Okay? The bottom 1% of the population in morals, the 1% bottom moral population, those pieces of shit people, they're 50% women. They're 50% women.
Equal opportunity assholes.
Equal opportunity to be an asshole.
Yeah.
And so when I've been told over and over again that believe all women, the women wouldn't lie. And then it happened to me 3 times, Benjamin. 3 times that women literally lied about sexual assault to hurt me for personal gain. They did it to me 3 times. I am never taking a person on their word just because of their intersectionality again. I'm never taking a person on their word. If a black person says they're a victim of bigotry, I'm going to ask them to tell me about it. Really? You were a victim of bigotry? Really, Mr. Latino person? You're a victim of bigotry? I'm really sorry about that. Tell me about that. And I'm sure it's true. I'm sure we've all faced bigotry. I faced bigotry as an Ashkenazi Jew. I faced anti-Semitism. It's not systemic. It's not the system's fault that I couldn't pass a test. It's not that the test wasn't anti-Semitic if I failed. Okay? And we have to start talking to each other as adults now. And I'm frustrated, obviously, because, you know, this thing that has happened to me, it really hurt me. Okay? I can't trust anybody ever again. Or at least I can't trust anybody right now. I mean, 2 of the women who lied about me, and one of the guys who lied about me, were my friends. They weren't strangers. And so, or at least I thought they were my friends. And one of them was my employee, who I trusted. And so these people I'm not going to be trusting anybody moving forward, and I don't think anybody should. But that means not giving in to the white guilt, not giving into fake white guilt. If somebody says that the system is bigoted, ask them to show you it. And then if they show it to you, fight it. Because nobody wants a bigoted system. Nobody wants bigotry. Nobody wants racism. Nobody wants misogyny. It's all bullshit. And it all goes in all directions, by the way. Sexism goes in both directions. Racism goes in all directions. And it's all bullshit. It's all bigotry. It's all discrimination based on immutable characteristics. It's all dumb as a fucking stick.
How do you keep your distrust from going overboard, though? How do you keep... Because you're obviously going to need to trust at least the pizza guy to deliver the pizza, right? I guess you withhold the funds until you get there. I mean, there's different, you know...
Oh, I'm not distrusting of humans in general. I'm distrusting of women. I'm distrusting of women. I'm distrusting of men who wish to, who have something to gain from me, or who have something to gain from my loss. I am distrustful of new friends. And so how do I deal with it? How do I stop it from going overboard?
Yeah.
I do have, one of the things that's happened to me over the past couple of years, the silver lining in this is that because the accusations were clearly false, and because I have proof, pictures, witnesses, recordings, I have had a rather good number of people come to me over the past couple of years and become defenders of me online. I would like to also mention that a large population of these wonderful people are women. A large majority of the people who have come into my life over the past couple of years, or have grown in status in my social circles, in my closed circle, the vast majority are women. And so I'm surrounded right now with a very, very important asset. I'm surrounded by strong, wonderful women who care about me. And these strong, wonderful women who care about me, we talk a lot. I talk a lot to all of these people. And they know better than I do about who's crazy. They know better than I do about who's malicious. They know better than I do who to trust. And I'm a very bad judge of character, and what I have is a group of people who are vetted, who have been through a substantial vetting process, and
So you have really peer review for new friends, then?
Yes, exactly right, and new girlfriends, peer review for friends and girlfriends, and that's really, really important. I mean, it's huge because I'm terrible at it, obviously. And so, what am I doing to save myself? Well, I'm hiding out. I'm injured. I'm really. The example is I'm come a long way, Benjamin. Okay, from a year and a half ago to 2 years ago to now, I have really come a long way out of this depression. I still have a way far to go. This is huge. This is huge. I have come very, very far, and I still have very, very far to go to get out of this horrible hole that this put me in. And these women, my friends, men and women, but these people are my key to my brain, because they forgive me for cheating on my wife and having sex with a board member's wife, but also, more importantly, they redeemed me for that. I sought redemption from them for that, and they gave that to me with mercy and forgiveness. It was a great thing. But they are furious on my behalf for what's happened to me. So they're like an army defending me. And when I spin out, which happens many times a day, I snap, I yell, I curse, and they forgive, and they have mercy and compassion. And they're wonderful, wonderful people, and I'm so privileged to have them in my life. And so the answer to your question, how am I doing this? How am I moving forward? Well, I've got a core group of friends, and I'm going to stick with them. And I'm not taking anybody new in. I'm getting the love that I need. I'm getting affection. I have a girlfriend. And I have, good friends that are going to protect me moving forward to a certain degree. And, Benjamin,
as long as you keep your social distance.
Well, yeah. Right?
Congratulations for reaching the end of the podcast. If you enjoyed this product, consider donating to this channel via paypal.me/Benjamin Boyce or joining me on Patreon. Also follow me on Twitter at Benjamin A. Boyce. Have a good night.